The stars over New Carthage shimmered like a tapestry stitched by a divine hand, each point of light a reminder that humanity was never meant to remain confined to one world. Governor Orion Reyes stood on the balcony of the central spire, hands braced against cold steel as he watched the night sky. The twin moons cast silver shadows over the colony settlement below, quiet, peaceful, unsuspecting. A moment like this could fool a man into believing danger didn't exist, but Orion knew better. He had felt the shift in the stars, a vibration across comm channels, scatter of unidentified sensor blips, a silence from Earth's fleet that felt too precise. Something was coming. Inside, the governor's office buzzed with low lights and soft holo displays. A young officer hurried in, Lieutenant Ashir Malik, his boots echoing sharply. "Sir, deep radar confirms it. They're here." Orion's expression didn't change. He simply nodded. "How many?" "2 armadas, sir. Identified as Zorani Sovereign Fleet." Ashir swallowed hard. "They've deployed into blockade formation around the planet. The name alone carried a history soaked in fear. The Zorani never invaded to conquer. They arrived to absorb, to erase sovereignty, culture, and faith. Entire species had vanished into their empire without leaving sunlight behind." Orion exhaled slowly, turning his gaze skyward again. "So the rumors were true," he murmured. "They want a Terran world." Ashir's voice shook. "Orders from Earth?" "No signal from Earth," Orion said. "We stand alone." A heavy silence settled, broken only by distant hums of the colony reactor. Orion whispered, barely audible, "Oh God, give us the strength you once gave our ancestors." Ashir looked at him, confused for a moment. Faith wasn't common among military brass. But Orion's eyes remained fixed on the heavens, more certain than afraid. He tapped the comm link on his wrist. "Alert Civil Command. Quiet Mobilization Protocol Level 3. Ashir hesitated. "Sir, are you sure?" "These are civilians. These civilians," Orion cut in sharply. "Came to this planet because they knew the frontier comes with teeth." His jaw tightened. "Every Terran is a soldier when survival calls." In orbit, the Zorani flagship loomed like a cathedral forged from nightmares, obsidian plates wrapped around a skeletal hull. Inside, Arkanthul, overseer of the Conquest Fleet, observed New Carthage through a display of hovering glyphs. "A primitive colony," he hissed. "One ultimatum and they will kneel." A communications officer bowed. "Channel open." "Overseer," Arkanthul's lips curled. "Transmit." A thunderous signal stabbed through the void and slammed into every surface receiver on the planet. The ultimatum screens flickered alive across homes, factories, security rooms. A monstrous alien figure emerged, 4 burning eyes, voice vibrating like metal grinding against bone. "Terrans of New Carthage, you are encircled. Surrender your world, your defenses, and your faith. Kneel, or be purged from the stars." A countdown appeared below his image. 01. 1 hour before annihilation. Panic rippled through the colony like wildfire. But in the command spire, silence. Governor's choice. Ashir's hands shook as the countdown reflected in his visor. "What do we do?" Orion didn't answer immediately. His thoughts flickered to the faces below. Miners, farmers, engineers, people who left Earth seeking a freer life. People who believed in something greater than fear. He turned to his officers. "We do what humans always do." He stepped forward and pressed a manual override on the comm network, flooding every speaker. "On the planet," his voice came through. "Steady, calm, defiant, people of New Carthage. This planet is our home. We will not kneel. We will not surrender. Stand by for further instructions." There was no speech of grandeur, no patriotic roar, just a directive. And in that directive, hope. Coded message. The Zorani expected a reply. "Surrender terms, please," a cry for mercy. Instead, after a long minute of silence, a different signal broke through the static, a signal they didn't understand. A short, defiant human voice. "You're on Earth's time now." The phrase transmitted through every frequency. To the Zorani, it meant nothing. To Orion's people, it meant everything. It meant, "We are prepared. This world is trapped with us, and we have teeth." Orion exhaled, eyes burning with the kind of fire war cannot extinguish. "Begin," he ordered. Mobilization. Across the colony, Ordinary people moved with military precision because they weren't ordinary. The farmer with calloused hands from Earth's mountain, infantry, the school teacher from the Navy's tactical corps, the miners, retired engineers from orbital defense. Old medals rested on chests once more. Dusty rifles were pulled from hidden vaults. Families whispered prayers in the dark, not luck. Someone wanted me to live. Ashir looked at Orion as the command room surged into controlled chaos. You planned this, he whispered. No, Orion replied quietly. We prepared for this. His eyes hardened. Because humanity learned long ago, peace is borrowed time. Faith and resolve as the countdown struck 0040 while Orion paused by a window overlooking the settlement. Lights flickered on, hundreds, thousands, not fleeing, not hiding. Standing, Ashir approached. Do you really believe God hears us out here? Orion didn't turn. Look at the stars, Lieutenant, he said. You think all this is an accident? Ashir followed his gaze. Galaxies swirling like calligraphy only a divine hand could write. We fight, Orion whispered, because we were made to protect what he gave us. A moment passed. Silent, sacred. The calm. Before fire, then sirens. Sensor alarms blazed red across the command table. Ashir's voice cracked. Overseer Arkanthul's fleet is arming primary cannons. They intend to fire. Orion straightened. No fear. No tremor. Just the stillness of a man who has measured death and found it lacking. He raised his wrist comm. All units, code black. Every hand in the colony paused, every heart synchronized. Orion's final order before the sky would burst. We make them bleed for every inch of sky. The countdown hit 0:30 ere the first plasma bolt charged in orbit. Humanity didn't flinch. The storm was coming, and New Carthage would not fall quietly. The first Zorani plasma cannon roared to life, casting a sickly green glow across the void. On New Carthage's surface, every head tilted upward, not in panic, but with the steady breath of warriors who had expected this moment long before it arrived. Governor Orion Reyes stood in the command center, eyes locked on the tactical display. Red markers multiplied like a swarm of digital locusts. Impact in 30 seconds, Ashir Malik announced. Voice taut. Orion didn't blink. Activate the veil. Ashir hesitated only for half a heartbeat before slamming his palm onto the control surface. A planet that fights back, across the terrain. What looked like ordinary hills split open, revealing steel hearts. Slabs of earth peeled upward to form angular structures. Massive railgun batteries disguised beneath decades of soil. Shield projectors roared awake, weaving shimmering domes of invisible force around critical habitats. The colony wasn't defenseless. It was camouflaged armament. Ashir grinned with awe. Sir, they'll realize this isn't a civilian world. They already have, Orion muttered. The plasma bolt scorched through the upper atmosphere and vanished. A ripple of light shimmered briefly. Shield deflection successful. Ashir exhaled in disbelief. Direct hit absorbed. Orion cracked his knuckles. Send our reply. Humanity's opening salvo, a coded signal surged from buried emitters, racing upward into orbit. Zorani ships detected it. Too late. The mines detonated. From the dark between stars, sparks of death erupted, orbital mines, dormant for decades, igniting in perfect formation. Explosion after explosion rippled across the blockade. 3 Zorani cruisers shattered into molten shards. In the flagship's war chamber, Overseer Arkanthul lurched in rage. What devilry? His lieutenant hissed. This world is not what we believed. Arkanthul's fist struck the command slab, then burned the illusion to ash. War engraved in soil on the ground. The hidden railguns locked onto orbital trajectories. Their barrels glowed like angry suns, capacitors screaming with stored power. Command AI confirmed targets. Zorani destroyer, locked Zorani carrier, locked Zorani. Battleship, locked fire, Orion commanded. The planet answered. 12 thunderclaps shook the heavens. Metal slugs, hyper-dense, electromagnetic propelled, ripped into orbit like vengeful comets. 3 more. Zorani warships fractured and died, underestimating humans. A mistake older than Starzarani tactical. Officers scrambled. They're using stealth planetary artillery, ancient tactics, yet unpredictable. Arkanthul snarled. Terrans are animals. Cage them and they bite. He leaned forward. Voice cold as vacuum, deploy the purge wings. Wave of attack craft spewed from the flagship. Hundreds of scaled fighters, descending like locusts toward the colony. Orion, watch the swarm incoming. They'll strike cities first. Ashir warned. That's what they think, Orion replied. Activate the burrows. Cities become fortresses. Buildings shuddered. Streets split open as entire housing districts descended underground, vanishing beneath shielded layers of rock and titanium. What appeared as peaceful neighborhoods became bunkers and compact fire bases. Children clutched their parents. Prayers murmured softly. God protect us. We trust you. A young alien fighter pilot spotted a family disappearing below. He hesitated, confused. Why do they hide? They are not soldiers. His Zorani commander barked, Everything human is a weapon. The pilot looked again. A man was kneeling, hands lifted to the sky in prayer. The alien whispered, Why? Do they pray in war? He never got an answer. A burst cannon from a concealed turret blasted his fighter out of the sky. Internal battle. The weight of command. Enemy strikes intensified. Explosions rocked the outskirts. Defense screens shimmered under relentless hits. Orion watched casualties tick upward. Names, not numbers, miners, engineers, friends. He clenched the rail of the command table until his knuckles whitened. Ashir noticed the tremor in his hand. You're doing everything possible. Sir, Orion didn't look at him. If we fail, his throat tightened. They lose everything, not just lives, purpose, a future, he inhaled, steadying himself. Fear was a luxury leaders couldn't afford. Boarding the battlefield. A sudden alert blared, enemy breaches detected. Sector West Ridge dropships had landed. Zorani ground forces, towering reptilian warriors with serrated blades, poured into the canyon. Orion drew his sidearm. Ashir blinked. Sir, you can't... I'm still a Marine, Orion said, loading a fresh magazine. Rank doesn't change that. Ashir followed, rifle in hand. Then I'm not letting you go alone. Orion smirked. Good man. In the canyon, blood and dust. The West Ridge was a scar of jagged crimson rock. Smoke choked the air. Terran defense squads were exchanging. Fire with Zorani soldiers advancing with thunderous roars. A plasma shot flew past Orion's head as he took cover behind a broken ore hauler. Ashir fired 2 clean rounds. One alien fell. The other staggered. Orion popped out, sighted, squeezed the trigger. A Zorani warrior lunged, nearly impaling him. They crashed into the dirt, claws inches from his face. Orion strained, muscles burning. Oh, God, help me. Ashir's shout pierced the chaos. Sir, duck. A blast of kinetic fire erased the alien. Orion stared at the smoking corpse, chest heaving. Not luck, Ashir muttered, helping him up. Someone wanted you to live. Orion nodded, breath shuddering, faith strengthened sinew where fear tried to take root. Battle turning, more railguns fired. Another. Zorani carrier died in orbit Terran. Courage was rewriting the rules of war. Farmers fighting like commandos, scientists operating artillery, engineers. Turning scrap into death traps. Humanity wasn't built for surrender, it was built for resurrection. A scar for a scar. Orion spotted a massive Zorani brute, preparing to execute a pinned Terran squad. Without hesitation, he sprinted, firing bursts that barely slowed the beast. The brute swung, Orion braced, pain flashed. He hit the ground. The alien growled in triumph, until a boom split the air. A Terran exoloader suit, paint-chipped, hydraulic limbs roaring, charged in, ramming the alien into the canyon wall with bone-shattering force. The suit's pilot opened comms. Governor, sir, if you're gonna die, at least schedule it. We've got a war on. Orion grinned grimly. He wasn't alone. Not today. Not ever. A moment of sunrise. The sky above blazed with falling ships, Zorani wreckage burning bright like comets crashing through dawn. Fire spread, but light spread too. Ashir looked up, awestruck. It's like the heavens fight with us. Orion watched the flames reflect in the eyes of the soldiers around him. Maybe they do. For a brief heartbeat, time stilled. The human spirit glowed brighter than war. Then, the earth shook. Every screen flashed red. New threat detected. Leviathan-class dreadnought entering orbit. Orion's blood ran cold. The real battle had just arrived. Space darkened. Where once the Zorani fleet shimmered like a net of blades around New Carthage, now a single monstrous shadow swallowed the starlight. A Leviathan-class dreadnought, a ship so large it could eclipse cities. Its hull writhed with living metal, armor that pulsed like breathing flesh. Lightning surged across its length as its engines peeled apart space. Even the railguns fell silent. As if humanity needed a second to take in the scale of the nightmare that had arrived. In the Plateau Canyon, Governor Orion Reyes wiped blood from his brow, staring upward. Ashir Malik whispered, "That thing. It's as big as a mountain." "No," Orion corrected, voice low. "Mountains don't shoot back." Ashir swallowed. In orbit, the enemy's pride on the Leviathan's bridge, Overseer Arkanthul stood taller now, victorious again in his own mind. "These Terrans think themselves warriors," he growled. "We show them the weight of insignificance." His claws tapped the control altar, charged the star spear. Light gathered at the Leviathan's prow, raw energy screaming into form. Arkanthul smiled like a god preparing judgment. Humanity pushes back alarms blared in the command center as Tactical Officer Mira Han shouted over the chaos. "Dreadnought weapon charging. Estimated planetary strike in 60 seconds. Orion went still. This weapon wasn't meant for the battlefield, it was meant for extinction. He opened colony-wide comms. "Every mobile gun, target the Leviathan. We delay that shot or we die trying." Railguns swiveled as mortars roared to life. This was humanity's answer. Fight. Always fight. Shells streaked through the air, slamming into the dreadnought's shields. Flashing cracks formed, brief, brittle, before solidifying again. Not enough. The Airburns dropships shrieked across the sky, unleashing a fresh flood of Zorani warriors to the canyon. Ashir fired relentlessly, dropping enemies one after another. "We can't keep them back, sir." Orion ducked a plasma bolt that vaporized stone beside him. "We don't have to keep them back." He chambered another round. "We just have to hold until the right moment." Ashir gave him a quick, sharp nod. Faith wasn't only in God. It was in each other. The Star Spear Charges Overseer Arkanthul's voice chimed across human frequencies. "Terrans, your resistance is admirable and meaningless." The Leviathan's weapon core ignited. Roaring beam of cosmic fire condensed into one. Devastating point. Seconds, the hidden hand of New Carthage. Orion activated his wristcom and spoke 2 words. Project Eclipse. Across mountains and deserted plains, seismic charges buried decades ago detonated. The ground cracked open, not destruction, but revelation. From the caverns rose the planet's trump card, a massive orbital accelerator cannon hidden beneath New Carthage's crust. A weapon built from Earth's darkest wars, now resurrected by a colony that refused to kneel. Ashir stared in shock. "Sir, that's a superweapon. Earth ordered it dismantled." Orion's eyes flashed like steel. "I never agreed." Faith tested in fire A's. Orion sprinted back toward Command Spire defense bunkers. An explosion knocked him off his feet. Dust swallowed the sky. His ears rang with cries, human and alien both. He pushed himself up, knees shaking, his vision blurred. Until he saw a young boy, no older than 8, trapped beneath debris, crying out for his father. Orion dropped his rifle, rushing forward. He shoved away the fallen stones, muscles screaming. The child clung to him. "Will God save us?" The boy trembled. Orion knelt, holding his face gently. "He already is," he whispered. "You're still breathing." A promise, a prayer, disguised as courage. He lifted the boy and sent him toward the shelters. Duty pulled him back to war. The KO. Last seconds, 10 seconds, the Leviathan's weapon thrummed, ready to annihilate the colony. Orion reached the command terminal. He placed his hand on the biometric trigger. Ashir's voice echoed behind him. "Sir, if this fails, it won't." Orion said, "How do you know?" Orion's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Because we aren't done yet. God doesn't close the book when there's still a fight left inside us." He pressed down. Eclipse unleashed. Beam tore skyward, blinding white. Faith and fury forged into light. The blast punched through atmosphere, screaming into orbit. Direct hit. The Leviathan's shield rippled, fractured, shattered. Shock waves tore across its hull, plating peeling, limbs of metal flailing like a wounded beast. Arkanthul staggered, roaring, "Stabilize!" The Terran weapon. His crew scrambled, terrified. A crack in the armor of gods. The superweapon didn't destroy the Leviathan, but it wounded. It deeply. Ashir stared at the sky in awe. "We made it." "Bleed." Orion holstered his sidearm. "No," he said quietly. "We showed them humans. Don't fear gods." He looked at the wounded. Dreadnought like a man marking his enemy. "We hunt them." The roar of humanity across the colony. Cheers erupted. For the first time, fear shrank. Hope grew teeth. Miners raised rifles and shouted. Engineers slammed fresh ammo into turrets. Old veterans saluted the rising accelerator cannon. Humanity had proven one truth. If you corner a Terran, you give him a reason to win. The enemy regroups on the Leviathan. Arkanthul snarled. Through the smoke. Deploy the Annihilator. Legion board their cities. Break their spirit. A new wave of Zerani forces emerged. Larger armored, engineered for slaughter. The sky shook with their arrival. "The real war begins." Ashir looked at Orion. His voice was small. "We wounded the beast. But now we've enraged it." Orion nodded slowly. "We're done defending." He tightened his grip on his weapon. "Now, we take the fight to them." The sky over New Carthage flickered with burning wreckage, turning darkness into a chaotic twilight. The Leviathan still hung in orbit, wounded, furious, alive. But its response was already descending. Metallic pods screamed downward like falling comets, each one delivering a new nightmare. When they hit the Earth, doors blasted open, unleashing towering, armored monsters, the Annihilator Legion. These were not soldiers. These were executioners. Their armor was carved bone steel, their weapons forged to sever hope. And they marched toward the heart of the colony. Command Decisions Governor Orion Reyes stood among his officers at the command table, dust still clinging to his jacket. Alarms pulsed relentlessly. Mirahan slammed her fist against the display. "They're pushing straight for Central Habitat. They'll slaughter civilians." Ashir Malik checked the tactical feeds, one sector after another turning red. "We don't have enough infantry to stop them head on." Orion nodded. "I know." His voice steadied the room. Even as the ground trembled, pull every remaining squad into defensive triangles. Focus on mobility, not lines. We protect families, every single one. A courageous plan for a hopeless situation. Perfectly human. The wolves unmasked. The colony's armored personnel carriers raced through smoke and craters, delivering soldiers where the fight raged hottest. But these weren't regular soldiers. As ramps dropped, they emerged. Ex-Marines in reinforced exosuits. Guerrilla specialists from old Earth wars. Scout snipers with camo tech stitched into their skin. A force born in peace. Forged in faith, Ashir shouted, "Wolves of Earth, move out!" The nickname wasn't official, but it fit. Humans did not hunt for conquest. They hunted to protect their pack. Close quarters hella battle erupted in the ruins of a transport hub. Ashir took cover behind a shattered monorail pillar. He peeked out. 3 Annihilators charging forward. Their heavy footfalls quaking concrete. These things weren't scared of bullets. He aimed at a cracked section of ceiling above them. 3 shots. Perfect placement. The ceiling collapsed, crushing one alien and trapping another. "See?" Ashir muttered. "Brains beat brawn every time." The third alien roared, charging. Ashir ducked as a massive blade sliced clean through the pillar. Before the beast could strike again, a flash of light and a deafening crack. Orion's rifle round punched through its skull. Ashir exhaled. "Thanks, sir." Orion didn't smile. "Don't thank me yet." A strange moment of faith for a brief lull. Orion crouched beside a wounded engineer, a man whispering through groans. "Commander." I kept thinking, why did we come all the way here? Out to these stars? Orion squeezed his shoulder gently. Because we were made to explore, not to kneel. The engineer looked up at the burning heavens, eyes wet. This can't just be an accident. Someone put us here for a reason. Orion nodded once. Yes. Someone did. A prayer without the ritual. Faith in battle's heartbeat. Overseer's anger on the Leviathan. Arkanthul watched the holograms with boiling rage. How do they still resist? How do they improvise so quickly? A nervous aide risked a reply. Terrans. Their behavior is unpredictable. Arkanthul seized the aide by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. We are the sovereign ascendants. They are vermin! He threw the aide down. Prepare the consecrators. A cruel hush fell over the bridge. Even Zorani feared that word. Defiance isn't enough back on the surface. The Wolves of Earth fought brilliantly, but losses were mounting. One district was overrun, then another. Civilians fled underground, but the enemy advanced faster. Orion felt the guilt tightening inside. He steeled himself against the tremor of doubt. Ashir noticed. Sir, you don't have to carry all of this alone. Orion's voice was quieter than usual. If I don't, who will? Ashir had no answer. Sometimes a leader's burden isn't shared, it's endured. New enemy emerges. A tremor rolled through the city. A colossal pod crashed into Central Square. Smoke. Silence. Then, mechanical limbs unfurled from the pod, lifting a towering figure into view. 8 meters tall, armor etched with sacrificial runes, a cannon fused to its right arm. Consecrator, built not to fight, built to wipe a civilization from memory. One target acquired, its voice boomed, mechanical and merciless. Eradication of Terran progeny initiated. The cannon charged, aiming at the primary civilian shelter entrance. Orion's breath froze. No, impossible heroism. Without hesitation, Orion sprinted, legs burning, lungs screaming. He reached a rooftop, leaped, hit the next building hard enough to bruise his ribs. The consecrator's cannon lit up. 5 seconds to fire. Orion raised a flare rifle, primitive, tiny against the giant, Ashir yelling somewhere behind him. Sir, don't! Orion fired. The flare struck the consecrator's face, harmless, but the creature flinched, aim shifting. The cannon blast speared into a bank tower instead of the shelter. Glass. Steel and flame erupted into the air. The shelter survived. Orion hadn't stopped breathing. Ashir slid to him, checking his pulse. You're insane, he whispered. Orion grinned through sweat. Insane keeps us alive. Human genius? The real weapon. Mirahan contacted Orion via comm. Governor, we can't damage the consecrator with conventional weapons. Orion scanned the battlefield, mind racing like a predator. Structure integrity of this block? 90% reinforced steelcrete, a plan sparked. Collapse it, he ordered. Sir, our people, already evacuated. Silence. Then, detonation in 3, 2. The explosive charges fired. Buildings fell like dominoes, slamming onto the consecrator dust. Clouds roared as the Titan was buried beneath thousands of tons of concrete. Ashir watched the debris pile. Rumble, I don't think that killed it. No, Orion replied, but it bought time. He looked at the underground shelter hatch, still sealed. Still safe. Time is the currency of survival. A brief pause. A long night ahead. The Annihilator Legion regrouped. The consecrator clawed its way upward through rubble. The Leviathan swelled with fresh power in orbit. The war was escalating, but humanity was still standing. Ashir leaned against the shattered wall beside Orion. You realize we're fighting a god, right? Orion shook his head. No, just a tyrant. He stared up at the burning heavens. There's only one who decides when this world ends, and he didn't bring us this far to leave us now. Signal from the stars suddenly calms. Crackled, a voice from deep space. Static. Then words. This is the Earth Defense Armada. Hold the line. Reinforcements incoming. Orion closed his eyes with relief. Not luck. Not coincidence. Providence. For a heartbeat, hope washed over New Carthage like dawn light. The message repeated, Earth Defense Armada en route. ETA, 18 minutes. Soldiers who had been fighting on muscle and faith alone felt new strength flood their limbs. Civilians in the bunkers wept silently, relief tasting like a miracle. Ashir Malik grinned wide for the first time since the sky fell. Sir, we did it. We just need to hold. Orion Reyes didn't smile. He stared at the tactical screen, seeing more than hope. 18 minutes, he said. We could lose everything in 2, because the consecrator was still climbing back to its feet, and the Leviathan still aimed its guns down at the world. Victory was not here yet. Victory had to be earned. War doesn't pause. The buried Titan erupted from rubble, roaring metal fury. Its cannon arm glowed again, charging faster this time. Mirahan's voice crackled. It's moving toward the hydroline conduit. If that ruptures, Orion cut her off. It won't. He sprinted forward. A sheer matching step, but even at full speed, they couldn't reach in time. The consecrator slammed its arm against the hydroline housing. Steel buckled. Gas hissed out, flammable. The beast aimed into the gas cloud. One spark would turn the district into a firestorm. Orion shouted, "Snipers! Blind it now!" 2 shots cracked from distant rooftops, rounds embedding into the creature's sensors. One eye shattered into sparks. The Titan roared, firing wildly. The blast streaked past Orion, detonating a tower behind him into a blooming inferno. Heat washed over Orion's back. Death brushed close. Ashir helped him up. "You okay?" Orion clenched his jaw. "Not dead." Basic truth of war, Arkanthul's voice thundered over all comms, dripping contempt. "Why do you fight? You delay the inevitable. Surrender will grant mercy." Ashir spat at the ground. "Mercy? They butcher planets." Orion raised his voice calm like stone. "We fight because you misunderstand. Humans. We do not fear death, we fear a life without freedom." The Zorani overseer fell, silent. Humans did that to tyrants. The colony fights. Backdrones skimmed low through smoke. Mining bots repurposed into kamikaze blasters. They swarmed the consecrator, detonating against its armor. Its movements faltered. Orion pointed. "Now! Heavy teams forward!" A group of powered miners charged, wielding modified industrial drills, slamming into the Titan's damaged joints. Sparks and black fluid sprayed as it screeched. Ashir fired a grappling spike into its knee. Pulling hard, a Marine with a rocket launcher leaped from a balcony, firing point blank into the exposed joint. The Titan collapsed, shaking the square. Cheers erupted, but Orion didn't celebrate. "It'll stand back up." Ashir shook his head in disbelief. "What does it take to kill this thing?" "Faith," Orion growled. "And a lot more explosives." Sacrifice is a language of heroes. A wounded exoloader pilot limped forward, blood staining his uniform. He looked up at the trapped Titan. "Sir?" He coughed. "I know how to finish it." Orion's eyes softened as he recognized the man, the same one who saved him in the canyon. "Loader frame is still operational," the pilot said. "If I overload the fusion core under its chest, it'll take the monster with me." Ashir stepped forward, protesting. "No, there's another way." "There isn't," the pilot replied with a tired smile. "And we don't have time to wait for miracles." Orion placed a hand on his shoulder. "What's your name, soldier?" The man stood taller. "Gideon Price, engineer 2nd class." Ryan's voice carried weight and warmth. "Gideon Price, New Carthage will remember you." Gideon saluted, climbed back into his battered loader suit, and stomped toward the struggling Titan. The consecrator tried to rise. Gideon slammed it down again, drilling into the weak spot beneath its chest. Red warning lights flashed across his cockpit. He whispered, "Someone wanted me to live this long. Let the rest be yours." He triggered the overload. A brilliant blast of white engulfed both machine and monster. The shockwave knocked Orion and Ashir backward, helmets clashing against concrete. When the fire cleared, the Titan was silent. Dead. A moment of reverence. Ashir stared at the smoking crater. He knew he was going to die. He knew he needed to. Orion corrected quietly. He knelt, touching the scorched ground, saying nothing. Sometimes, silence is the purest prayer. The Leviathan reacts. Arkanthul roared in rage. Claws tearing through the command dais. Terran insects. Why do they resist extermination? He pointed at his tactical chief. "Prepare the Soulbreaker array." The officer froze, terror in every scale. "But Overseer, that weapon is forbidden even by—" "Silence!" Arkanthul shrieked. "I will scour their spirits from existence." A horrifying truth spread through his crew. This was not conquest anymore. This was genocide driven by pride. Earth arrives. A flash split the void. Jump signatures blooming into existence. Then, warships dot dozens, sleek Terran destroyers encircling the battlefield. The Earth Defense Armada emerged like avenging angels. Their lead commander broadcast, "This is Admiral Hale, New Carthage. We fight with you." Ashir pumped a fist into the air. "You hear that? We're saved." Orion didn't celebrate yet. Admiral Hale's voice hardened. "But we're outnumbered, and that dreadnought could destroy us all." Orion replied, "Not if we break it from the inside." "A new mission?" He turned to Ashir. "We're boarding the Leviathan." Ashir blinked. "You mean, onto that thing?" "No," Orion said. "Into it." He shouldered his rifle. "Someone needs to stop the Soulbreaker." Before it fires, Ashir inhaled sharply, then nodded. "You lead. I follow." Humanity's heartbeat. One man stands. Another stands beside him. The war above begins. Terran ships lit the void with rail lances and thunder spit. Artillery. The Leviathan fought back, dark lightning coiling from its maw. Starfire painted the universe with fury. Wolves take the sky dropships launched from the surface, carrying Orion, Ashir, and the elite wolves of Earth up toward the monstrous dreadnought. As they ascended through smoke and gunfire, Ashir asked, "You ever been afraid, sir?" Orion looked out at the burning stars. At the future he refused to surrender, only of failing the people who believe in me. Ashir nodded. "That's why we follow you." Above them, the Leviathan loomed, grotesque and alive, waiting to be challenged. Orion tightened his grip on the rail. "God, guide my hand." The dropship hit the Leviathan's hull with a metallic scream. Magnetic clamps snapped to surface plating that looked less like steel and more like bone. Inside the tight cabin, soldiers checked weapons in silence. Nobody pretended this was routine. Orion Reyes stood by the hatch, helmet visor reflecting the faint glow slicing through the void. "Lock armor," he commanded. Servos hummed, armor sealed. Ashir tapped his chest plate twice, his ritual. Outside, the dreadnought's surface pulsed with veins of blue light, like a sleeping giant whose breath you could feel. Ashir muttered, "Sir." "Why does a ship have pulses?" Orion replied. "Because it's alive, or something like alive." He said the next words with quiet steel. "We end it." The hatch blew open. The path in they moved fast, clamping along the hull like ants climbing a nightmare. Guided by AI signals, a worm cutter breached through, layered plating. When the breach finally melted, open, hot vapor rushing outward, Orion stepped into darkness, not metal walls, organic, membranes stretched like thick hide. Every step squelched, one Marine whispered, "I thought ships were made." "From ships," Ashir responded. This was grown. Lights flickered on their helmets, revealing biomechanical corridors twisting like intestines. Nothing about this place was designed for humans. Internal threat. A vibration shook the corridor, then a scream. Marine was yanked upward into the sealing flesh. His boots kicked, rifle clattering. "Cut him out!" Orion shouted. Ashir fired a line cutter, slicing the membrane. The Marine dropped, gasping, covered in sap-like ooze. He stared at Orion with terror. "It grabbed me," he breathed. Orion met his fear calmly. "Then don't give it a second chance." Behind his calmness, Orion felt the truth claw at him. This place wants us dead. Echoes of the enemy. The hallway widened into a cathedral-sized chamber. Strange pillars rose, bridges of bone and metal connecting them like ribs. Soft whispers drifted through the air. Not language. Emotion, fear, submission, surrender. Ashir flinched. "What is that?" Orion steadied him. "Psychological warfare." Ignore it. He hoped he could ignore it too. They approached a pulsating core, glowing threads climbing upward. Orion's HUD mapped its trajectory. "To the central spinal relay," he murmured. "Soulbreaker must be higher." Then footsteps, heavy, predatory. Shadows. Unfurled from the far side of the chamber. Zorani elites. Not warriors, enforcers. 7 feet tall. Armor fused to skin. Claws like obsidian. Ashir whispered, "Sir, these aren't soldiers. They're executioners." Orion drew his sidearm slow and sure. "So don't get executed." First clash in the darkness. The first elite charged, like a boulder shot from a cannon. Orion dove aside, firing a burst into its neck seam. Ashir followed, explosive rounds cracking armor. The creature shrieked, more animal than soldier. The wolves formed a half-circle, fighting with brutal efficiency. Stumbled, talons pierced his armor, lifting him up. Ashir roared and fired, blowing off the attacker's arm. The Marine dropped, alive but trembling. "Keep moving," Orion ordered, but an elite blocked the only exit. Eyes burning with hatred, it hissed, "Earth will kneel." Orion stepped forward. "We only kneel to God." He fired a rail shot right through its skull. It fell without a sound. Human fear versus human faith. Smoke drifted through the chamber as the last elite collapsed. A Marine asked, voice shaking, "Governor, do you ever think we're outmatched?" Orion paused, then answered, "Yes." They waited, breaths held. He continued, "But we're not alone. We never are." His hand briefly touched the small metal pendant inside his armor, hidden from others, but not from heaven. Across the chamber, a young soldier saw the gesture. "Sir, you believe someone's watching us?" Orion looked up at the ceiling, imagining stars beyond the flesh. "If not, we'd all be dead by now." It wasn't a speech, it was a truth. Enemy eyes watching hidden above. Cameras of living tissue recorded everything, feeding data straight to Arkan Thule. He watched Orion's faith with disgust. "Primitive superstition," he spat. Yet, for the first time, he felt a doubt crack through his arrogance. Why did these humans keep rising? Why wasn't fear enough to break them? He slammed a fist into a console. "Seal the spinal relay. Flood the intruders with vapor." The ship responded with a living roar. Poison air tubes burst overhead, spewing chemical gas. Masks sealed automatically, filters screaming warnings as they fought toxins. Ashir coughed hard, even through the mask. "Can't breathe." Orion grabbed him, forcing a backup seal over his face. "Stay with me." Vision blurred at edges, black creeping in. Orion gave a silent plea. "Let him live. Please." Filters recalibrated, pressure equalized. Ashir gasped in new air. "You saved me." Orion didn't reply. Didn't have to. He just pulled. Ashir forward again, no man left behind, not today, not ever. Climbing into the beast's heart, they reached the vertical shaft that led up, pulsing walls. Climbing into darkness, a living elevator system, fleshy grips. Shifting, not trusting that. Ashir muttered. Orion fired grappling lines. They climbed. At mid-height, movement below. A tide of Zorani soldiers swarmed up, arms stabbing into walls like spiders. No time to hesitate. Climb faster. Orion shouted, Ashir's voice strained. "We'll never reach the top in time." Orion looked up. One option. One insane, human option. He pointed at a glowing thread. A power conduit. "Shoot it." Ashir's eyes widened. "That'll drop the whole shaft." Orion smiled tight. "That's the point." Together they fired. The conduit ruptured, electric shockwaves racing upward. The walls convulsed, structure collapsing, soldiers screamed, falling. Into the abyss, the wolves clung, desperately, straps and claws biting in, dust settled. Silence remained. They were alive. Ashir laughed breathlessly. "You're insane." Orion allowed himself the hint of a grin. Humanity's greatest advantage. A final door, the top hatch loomed before them, sealed with bone plating and pulsing locks. Behind it, the Soulbreaker array. If activated, every Terran mind within range would be annihilated. Orion placed a hand on the door, feeling the heartbeat of the beast ship. "Feeling the stakes," he whispered, quiet enough only heaven would hear. "Not today. Not ever." He turned to his team. "We end this weapon. We save our world." Ashir nodded, voice steady again. "And we show them why humanity never bows." Orion drew his blade, energized edge humming. Breach. Steel met bone. Light cut darkness. War entered the heart of the Leviathan. The hatch cracked open with a scream of tearing bone. A blast of cold air hit them like stepping into a mausoleum. The chamber beyond glowed dimly with purple sparks rippling through nerve-like cables. A massive structure dominated the center. A spire of jagged metal fused into organic flesh. Its top vanished into shadow as if devouring light itself. Ashir whispered, "Is that the Soulbreaker?" Orion felt a chill crawl up his spine, not from fear of death, but fear of extinction. That weapon doesn't destroy bodies, he said. It erases everything that makes us human. They entered cautiously, boots echoing across a living floor that twitched beneath their weight. Each step brought a whisper. Surrender. 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 The chamber wasn't just a weapon room, it was a battlefield of minds. Arkanthul makes. Contact lights rippled, and a towering hologram of Arkanthul materialized above the spire. His voice rattled the room. Humans infest the universe like a disease. The Soulbreaker will cure existence. Orion stepped forward, rifle raised. You tried curing us before, he shot back. Didn't work. Arkanthul's eyes narrowed. This weapon attacks the mind, directly faith, hope, memory, identity, all flattened into obedience, or nothingness. Ashir muttered through clenched teeth. Sounds like hell. Arkanthul snarled. Hell? I am mercy. His hand cut downward, and the Soulbreaker came alive. The assault on reality, a pulse of violet energy burst from the spire, passing through armor, through bone, into thoughts. Orion staggered. Voices stabbed into his mind. You failed them. Your colony dies because of you. You are just a soldier pretending to be a leader. Dead faces appeared. His old platoon, lost in the siege of Vega 9, Captain Hale, Private Moss, and Lucas, all staring at him, disappointed. Orion's legs buckled, his rifle clattered. Not real, he gasped. Not real? But the pain, real. The doubt, real. The guilt, real as blood. The Soulbreaker fed on weakness, and every human alive carried scars. Ashir's fall. Ashir dropped to one knee, clutching his head, screaming words he could barely form. Please. I didn't mean to. I couldn't save her. I'm sorry, Mama, Mama. He sobbed, and a man broken open. Arkanthul laughed, savoring it. Look how easily your species shatters. The wolves stumbled, one by one, falling to knees. Helmets clattering as hands trembled uncontrollably. Humans, the resilient species, gasping like children. But one man didn't fall. Orion forced his eyes open, muscles shaking, and he spoke, not to Arkanthul, but upward. God, help us. A whisper of peace cut through the storm. Just enough. Turning despair into defiance, Orion stood. Pain didn't stop, but he chose to move anyway. He walked to Ashir, grabbed his friend by the harness, and lifted him. Hey, look at me. Ashir's eyes were clouded with agony. It's all my fault, he whispered. Orion slammed his forehead lightly against Ashir's helmet, a grounding impact. No, it isn't. His voice became the force holding the world together. You breathe. You stand. You fight. Your mother raised a warrior, not a victim. A tear rolled down Ashir's cheek. But he stood. The wolves saw him rise. And they remembered they were wolves. One by one, they pushed to their feet. Arkanthul's expression shifted from amusement to concern. Humans didn't stay broken. The plan that sounds impossible. Orion pointed to the spire's lower core, pulsing with unstable power. That's a biological amplifier. If we overload it, Ashir finished. Chain reaction. The whole Soulbreaker goes critical. Arkanthul roared, You dare defy inevitability? Orion flashed a grin, the kind only humans can make under doom. Defiance is our native language. He barked orders. Ashir, charges on the core. Wolves, cover fire. They moved, hope returning like oxygen. The Overseer arrives. The hologram flickered, and the real Arkanthul crashed into the chamber, armored scales scraping the floor. He was larger up close, monstrous power incarnate. He charged. Orion rolled aside, just barely, avoiding claws that slashed deep gouges through the bone. Floor Ashir fired, rounds sparking harmlessly off the Overseer's armor. Arkanthul kicked Ashir, sending him flying into a pillar. His armor cracked, blood spilled. Ashir, Orion shouted. Arkanthul laughed. Your faith cannot save him. Orion lifted his blade, fire in his voice. It already has. A fight worth dying for. Arkanthul swung. Orion blocked with his energized blade, and sparks exploding. The force drove him backward, knees bending. He struck back, blade carving a glowing gash into alien flesh. Arkanthul roared, backhanding him across the chamber. Orion crashed hard, ribs screaming. Vision blurred. He tasted blood, iron, and electricity, yet he rose. Ashir crawled toward the core, planting charges with shaking hands. Arkanthul saw, and lunged. Orion tackled him mid-charge, pure will against pure mass. Finish it, he yelled. Ashir locked the last detonator, palm hovering over the trigger, but Arkanthul knocked Orion aside and stomped toward Ashir. Ashir raised a pistol, firing until the clip ran dry. Bullets bounced away. Useless. Arkanthul grabbed his throat, lifting him high. Ashir choked, legs kicking. You are nothing, Arkanthul hissed. Ashir smiled, him blood on his teeth. That's the thing about humans, he croaked. We make something out of nothing. He slammed the trigger. Light versus darkness, the core detonated. A violent burst of energy ripping into the soulbreaker. Circuits. The chamber howled. Arkanthul staggered, armor cracking, a gash splitting across his chest. The entire ship shook, alarms screaming like wounded animals. Orion dragged Ashir away, collapsing behind a structure as the soulbreaker collapsed inward, collapsing like a dying star. The psychic pain vanished, replaced by clarity, silence, peace. Orion breathed. You did it. But Ashir was barely conscious and whispering, told you. I follow. Orion pressed his forehead to Ashir's. You live. You hear me? You live. Ashir's hand weakly gripped his arm. God willing. Then his eyes closed. Alive, but fading. The message of the soul. The Leviathan howled its fury as its greatest weapon died. Arkanthul stumbled, staring at the ruined spire in disbelief. Impossible. No species chooses agony over surrender. Orion looked at him, eyes blazing. We're human. He raised his blade, aimed at the overseer's throat. And we never kneel. He charged, screaming. A man fueled by love, pain, and righteous fire. Arkanthul roared, a sound that made walls tremble and souls shiver. His claws dragged sparks as he charged, fury giving him unnatural speed. Orion Reyes didn't flinch. He ran straight toward the monster. Their collision cracked the chamber like thunder. Orion's blade sliced across alien flesh, scattering drops of black-blue blood that hissed on the floor. Arkanthul retaliated, a hammer blow that sent Orion skidding across the flesh-metal ground. Pain flared, vision swam, but Orion forced himself up, spitting blood. You die here, Arkanthul snarled, stalking forward. Your species dies screaming. Orion wiped his jaw, steadied his breath. We don't die easy. Ashir's fight isn't over. Ashir lay bleeding. Armor cracked, breaths ragged, but when Orion was knocked down, Ashir's fingers twitched. His hand closed around a fallen rifle, his voice hoarse but unbroken. Hey, Lizard King. Arkanthul turned, annoyed. Ashir smirked weakly. Your mother ever tell you? You're ugly? He fired, every shot punching into the wounds Orion had opened. Arkanthul staggered, roaring. Orion seized the opening, sprinted up the spire's broken skeleton, leaping from a collapsing rib pillar, and brought his blade down with all the strength left in humanity. Steel met alien spine. The overseer screamed, dropping to one knee. Black blood poured. Orion stood before him, battered, shaking, but unbowed. The overseer's fear Arkanthul stared up, for the first time in his life, afraid. You fight pain, he rasped. You fight extinction. Why? Orion's voice was quiet, powerful as a prayer. Because life means something. Because we love. Because we believe. Arkanthul spat blood. Believe in what? Orion looked upward, toward a god unseen. That we were created for more than chains. A moment of pure conviction, brighter than any star. And Arkanthul's confidence shattered. The final strike, Arkanthul lunged in desperation, claws slashing to kill. Orion dodged, barely, but the blade slipped from his grasp, clattering across the chamber. The alien grinned savagely. Your courage dies first, He grabbed Orion by the throat, hoisting him high, squeezing. Blood pounded in Orion's skull. Vision fading. And then, a hand grabbed Arkanthul's arm. Ashir, broken, half dead, but standing. You forgot someone. He drove a combat knife into the Overseer's side. Deep, twisting. Arkanthul roared, releasing Orion. Orion dropped, rolled, snatched the blade from the ground, and with one final breath, for New Carthage, he swung. The blade carved through alien neck, a flash of blue blood. Arkanthul's head fell, striking the floor with a sickening thud. The overseer of the Leviathan was dead. Silence after the storm. For a heartbeat, the entire ship froze. No orders, no screams, just silence. Then, across every Zorani comm system, alarms shrieked chaos. Orion leaned heavily against a pillar, coughing, trying not to collapse. Ashir slid down beside him, breathing in shallow gasps. Orion grasped his shoulder. You're insane, he said. Ashir grinned through the pain. Humanity's greatest advantage. They laughed. The shaky laugh of men who survived the impossible. The ship turns carnivore, but the Leviathan itself was not done. Without its master, the ship reverted to instinct. Walls spasmed, conduits snapping, organic systems flaring. Self-preservation mode. It was trying to heal, trying to consume the intruders. Ashir looked up, drowsy. Sir, ship seems angry. Orion tapped his comm. Surface control. Do you read? Static. Then Mira Han's voice, frantic. Governor, the Leviathan's power levels are unstable. It's preparing to auto-sanitize. Ashir frowned. Auto-sanitize sounds friendly. Orion shook his head. It means the ship will dissolve everything inside it, including us. Ashir blinked. Less friendly. Orders from heaven or earth. Same goal. Orion strapped Ashir's arm over his shoulder, forcing him up. We're evacuating, he said. Ashir nodded weakly. What if we don't make it? Orion looked at him, eyes blazing with both defiance and faith. Then God will know we tried. Ashir smiled through blood. Good enough. Escape into firewolves carried wounded. Orion led the way. Organic walls pulsed violently, trying to seal passages. A massive tendril lashed down, slicing a Marine in half. Another soldier slipped on wet tissue, nearly swallowed as a floor vein opened like a mouth. Orion cut him free, pulling him forward. Every step, a battle. Finally, the breach site. Dropships waited outside, magnetized to the hull, gunfire lighting the void as Terran ships fought in orbit. Orion shoved Ashir toward the exit. Go. I'm right behind you. Ashir pointed at the collapsing corridor. No hero stuff. Orion kicked him out with a grin. We already did the hero stuff. He turned back to firing at incoming Zorani stragglers, making sure every wolf got out. When the last soldier leaped, Orion ran, jumped, and the dropship doors slammed shut behind him, a giant dies. The dropship peeled away as the Leviathan writhed and tore itself apart, a dying star beast thrashing. Massive explosions ripped through its spine, and then, a silent bloom of light. The Leviathan disintegrated. New Carthage lived. The stars held their breath. Relief is the hardest emotion. Ashir lay against the bulkhead, breathing with difficulty. He looked toward Orion, voice small, honest. We survived. Orion sank beside him, exhausted, armor battered, mind shaken, but heart steady. No, he corrected quietly. We won. Space fell quiet after the Leviathan's death, but silence in war is never peace. It is breathing before another scream. The dropships returned to New Carthage. Citizens filled the landing bay, waiting and fearing the worst, and then the doors opened. Wolves walked out, wounded, limping, but alive. A cheer rose, wild, unstoppable, like a dam bursting. Mothers clutched sons. Children cried. Soldiers embraced shaken friends. They had seen death and returned. The hero's Ashir stepped out first, supported by medics, and the crowd roared his name. He smiled weakly. I could get used to this. But then he noticed Orion hadn't followed. Panic struck him. Worse than any wound. Where's the governor? The crowd fell silent for a terrible moment. Everyone feared the answer then. Steel boots, slow steps, he appeared. Orion Reyes, battered, bleeding, but standing upright like a mountain refusing to fall. The cheering shattered the air, Ashir mouthed. Told you, hero stuff, Orion smiled. Faintly. Heroes are the ones who didn't return, he whispered, and his eyes shone with grief. Victory is also a wound medical teams carried the dead, covered in flags, wives. Collapsed. Brothers screamed, friends kissed cold foreheads. Promising they would not be forgotten, Orion watched. Fists clenched, jaw trembling. General Mirahan approached. We saved the colony, she said softly. Orion shook his head. We lost fathers, sons, dreams. Ashir stood beside him, breathing through pain. We'll carry them, he said. Always. Orion looked at him, something like pride in his eyes. Rest, Ashir, he said. War isn't done. Ashir exhaled a humorless laugh. Yeah, I noticed. The message from the stars hours later. The war room. Admirals gathered. Scars still fresh. Screens flickered with star charts. A communications officer swallowed. Hard. We intercepted a broadcast. Sir. The screen changed. A towering alien figure appeared. Armor black like a void. Eyes burning. Purple Zerani High Lord Vraxus the Eternal. Arkanthul's superior, the true architect of the invasion. His voice vibrated. Through the station, ancient and merciless. You killed my hound. You destroyed my Leviathan. Earth's colony will drown in starfire. Prepare to be erased. The signal ended, leaving cold terror behind. A junior officer whispered, This was just the first wave. Orion nodded grimly. The overseer wasn't the army, he was the scout. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Faith in the dark, in the quiet after the briefing. Orion walked alone through the memorial hall, flickering candles lining the walls. He knelt, set his blade down, and bowed his head. God, I'm only a man, he said. Give me strength for what comes next. Ashir limped in. Talking to God again? Orion didn't look up. Always. Ashir sat beside him, wincing. What did he say? Orion managed a thin smile. That I'm not alone. Ashir smirked. Tell him I said thanks for sending me. Orion chuckled in a weary, grateful sound. The calm before a bigger storm. The next days, rebuilding. Hospitals overflowed. Citizens volunteered to repair damage. Kids drew pictures of wolves and hung them on walls for the first time in days. New Carthage slept without fear, but Orion did not. Standing on a balcony overlooking the stars, he whispered to himself, Vraxus is coming. Ashir joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one over. Sir, whatever comes, we face it together. Orion looked at him, truly looked, and nodded. Yes, humanity stands. Humanity fights. Humanity believes. Ashir lifted his cup. To the wolves. Orion raised his. To the future. And somewhere deep in space, something massive stirred, a new Leviathan. 1,000 warships? A god of war? War was not over. It had only changed shape. Orion Reyes had seen death before, but now, death stared back when he closed his eyes. Every night since the Leviathan, the screams echoed. He tried to sleep. He failed. Ghosts. In the dark, the governor's quarters were quiet, too quiet. The stars outside looked like cold eyes watching him. He stood, shirtless in the dim light, scars running like maps of old wars across his skin. He poured water into his hands. It trembled. He whispered, Why them, God, not me? No answer came. He punched the sink. Metal dented beneath his fist. The strong break silently. Only walls hear their cries. A friend who sees. The door buzzed open. Ashir stepped in, leaning on a crutch. He froze, seeing Orion shaken, breath ragged. You okay? Ashir asked softly. Orion wiped sweat from his brow. Define okay, he muttered. Ashir sat on the bed, wincing. You know, when I was a kid, he said, my mother used to say, humans bend so they don't break. Orion gave a bitter smile. I think I'm past bending. Ashir looked at him. Really looked. You saved everyone. Don't punish yourself for those you couldn't. Orion shook his head. They trusted me. And they still do. Ashir replied. I do, for a moment. Orion let himself believe it. War that leaves no one untouched. Outside, New Carthage prepared for siege. Children were trained in shelters. Factories turned toys into bullets. Churches and mosques echoed with prayers. Lit by hope and fear, a young alien they had rescued when Prime sat alone in a guarded room. Ashir visited him. Prime flinched as he entered. You aren't here to hurt me? Ashir laughed gently. No, we don't kill prisoners. That's your people's thing. Prime hesitated. Why save me? Ashir shrugged. Because someone saved me once because we believe in mercy. Even in war. The alien stared, confused. You believe in something? Ashir tapped his chest. Someone watches us, helps us. Even when we feel alone, Prime whispered. Zorani have no god. Only fear. Ashir gave him a sad smile. That's why you'll lose. The spark of a new weapon in the command center. Orion studied holographic charts. Vraxis's fleet was huge, terrifying. A scientist approached nervously. Governor, we recovered Zorani technology from the Leviathan wreck. He activated a model. Alien energy pulsing like a heartbeat. We can turn their weapons into ours. Orion's eyes hardened. How long? Days, maybe less. Orion's voice regained the steel of a commander. Then we work without sleep, the breaking point hours later. Orion's vision blurred. He hadn't slept in 3 days. The room spun. A medic rushed over. You need rest. Orion slammed his fist on the table. Rest when we're dead. His knees buckled. Ashir caught him before he hit the ground. That's enough, Ashir growled. You're strong, but you're still human. Orion stared up and exhausted. Vulnerable. What if I fail? His voice cracked. Ashir held his shoulder. Then we fail together. But we will not surrender. A moment, with the stars later, under a star-filled dome, Orion finally let himself breathe. He stared upward, whispering, all this beauty. It can't be an accident, a tear slipped down. God, help me protect them. Ashir joined him again, quietly handing him a warm drink. One more night, Orion said. One more fight, Ashir replied. The two stood shoulder to shoulder. Whatever came, they would meet it together. The final call suddenly. Alarms blared. Officers sprinted into the dome. Governor. Massive warp signatures. Orion straightened, fatigue burned away by resolve. On screen, stars tore open. Warships emerged like a black ocean, blotting out the heavens. A voice boomed through every channel. I am Vraxis the Eternal. Your defiance ends tonight. Orion stepped forward, unshaken. No. He opened comms. Entire planet listening. This is Governor Orion Reyes of New Carthage. You want our land? You'll have to bury us in it. He looked at Ashir. Ashir nodded. Fierce. Humans don't kneel. Orion raised his fist. The order trembling the air. Wolves, prepare for the hunt. Across the surface, our defenses powered on. Massive cannons rose from mountains. The planet itself growled, come and take it. The sky burned. Zorani warships descended like a metal storm, shadowing continents. Lightning streaked from their weapons, cities, trembling beneath the impact. Every Terran gun roared. Backplanetary shields flashed like sun's orbital mines detonated in perfect synchronized waves. The ground shook with the truth. Humanity does not surrender. Governor Orion Reyes. The last lion standing Orion strode into the battlefield command. Armor scarred but gleaming with purpose. Status? He demanded. 2 sectors breached. Civilians evacuating. We're holding, barely. Ashir stepped in, rifle slung, eyes burning with faith. Wolves are ready, sir. Orion clasped his shoulder. Tonight, we show them what humans are made of. A whisper in Orion's heart answered, I am with you. The first clash drop pods slammed into the ground. Zorani warriors pouring out like ink spilled across Earth's canvas. Terran, soldiers fired with precision, fearless. Grenades soared, exosuits, charged, slamming alien forms into the dirt. Ashir led the front line of shouting. We are New Carthage. We are Earth. The wolves howled, a sound so primal even the invaders recoiled. Enter Vraxus the Eternal. A thunderclap hit. A crater erupted, from fire and dust. The High Lord stepped through. Vraxus stood 3 meters tall, armor glowing with the power of a dying star. He raised a fist, gravity itself, obeying his rage, crushing tanks like toys. His voice struck every ear, human and alien alike. You insects deny destiny, I offer mercy. Kneel. Silence. Then Orion walked forward, bloodied, alone, unafraid. No, he said, and the whole planet heard. You're on Earth's time. Now. The battlefield froze, as if even war held its breath. God, and the human heart Vraxus charged, meteoric. Speed, Orion dodged by inches, blade. Drawn steel met alien alloy, sparks scattering like stars. You fight knowing you'll die, Vraxus boomed. Why? Orion blocked a blow that would have shattered mountains, knees buckling. Because humanity was born under one sky, he grunted. And no one gets to take it from us. Vraxus hurled him through a ruined wall. Orion gasped, chest heaving. Ashir screamed, Orion! But Orion rose, somehow. He whispered under his breath, God. You kept me alive for a reason. Strength surged, impossible. Yet real. He charged again. Turning the tide up in orbit. A Terran engineer pressed a glowing switch. Reverse engineered. Zorani tech. Energy stolen from the Leviathan's heart. Activated. A ripple tore through space, like a supernova unfolding quietly. Zorani shields. Failed. Terran guns spoke. Explosions, like rising suns, tore apart warships in brilliant. Firestorms cheers erupted planet-wide. One soldier cried, Someone wanted us to live. The last strike back on the ground. Orion locked blades with Vraxus. Ashir fired, distracting the alien for a single heartbeat. That was enough. Orion's blade plunged deep, glowing with stolen. Zorani power. Vraxus staggered, an armor cracking like thunder. How? He demanded. Orion's voice was quiet and solemn. No empire outlives the human spirit. He twisted the blade, light consuming the High Lord until only ash remained. Silence. Then New Carthage erupted in a roar that shook the heavens. They had won. After the fire, Ashir limped beside. Orion, you really gotta stop almost dying, he said. Orion chuckled. Pain in every breath, I'll try. Ambulances and medics swarmed the field, cradling injured. Honoring fallen. Prime, the young rescued alien, and approached carefully. You fought because you believe in something greater, he said. Orion nodded. Every human heart beats with a purpose. Prime bowed deeply. Then, teach me your faith. Orion rested a hand on his shoulder. It begins with hope. A prayer for the future night. Returned. Stars shimmered. Peaceful again. Orion stood atop the citadel, overlooking the world he nearly died to. Protect, Ashir joined him. So, now what? Orion breathed deeply. Calm at last. Now we rebuild. Now we live. And if darkness rises again, he looked upward, unshaken. We rise higher, Ashir smiled. To the wolves. Orion extended a hand. To humanity. They clasped forearms and they warrior to warrior. Above them. The stars watched silently. Not an accident. Never an accident.